I'm not going to do it. You can't make me. I'm not talking about Dan Crenshaw for the third time this week. I've already done 2 videos on him. I would like to say something about what happened yesterday, but I'm not going to repeat myself again. I've said enough on the topic. But, he's not the only neocon in the world. So, what I'm going to say today about these neocons pushing all their garbage in Syria will also apply to Dan Crenshaw, since, he supports every last bit of this nonsensical policy. And that is, of course, the U.S.'s latest pivot in Syria, away from, saying that, we're just going to steal the oil, because, that's not okay. You're not going to really get away with that long term. I mean, the U.S. could, but it would look really bad. And the U.S. doesn't like looking bad. The U.S. likes to always play the pure angel and tell everyone, in the world about how, the U.S. is so great and always acts so selflessly and helps all the poor people of the world. So the U.S. is pivoting away from saying we're just going to take the oil to, hey, we're going to help the people who live there, get the oil out of the ground so that, it can benefit them. That's the ploy we're playing now. So it's going from pillaging to nation building, which I gotta say this is pretty blue-pilled stuff. I'm a little disappointed. I liked it when Trump was talking like an ancient conqueror, saying that we're coming in and we're gonna steal all their resources because that's what we do, because we're the tough guys. At least that sounded honest. This is George W. Bush garbage. It's absolutely meaningless. It's not honest. They're not going to build a great nation up in eastern Syria, in some landlocked desert that has, very few people and a lot of oil. And so the U.S. now is going to be dumping untold millions, probably billions, pretty quickly into this region to try and build it up into some kind of prosperous, not country, because they're not going to call it a country. I'll get to that later. But some sort of prosperous breakaway province where the revolution in Syria can live on, to where they can fly their green, white, and black flag with pride, and talk about the good old days of when everybody was fighting Assad in Aleppo, and they could say, you know what, I burned down 3 churches all by myself. And the guys can, they can sit on their porches and talk like that about the good old days and all the great, awful, evil deeds that they did. And they could say, you know what, hey, remember that time that we faked a chemical attack on children, and we took this kid off the street and poured a bunch of water over his face to make it look like we were cleaning the chemicals out of his eyes? Wasn't that hilarious? And that's basically what this is going to be. It's going to be like a rump state of the Syrian Revolution. Kind of like when they sent an exiled Napoleon and 1,000 of his closest friends to that island in the Mediterranean for a while, and it was like his little fiefdom, to where people could pretend like the French Revolution was still going on, even after the rightful Bourbons had been restored to the throne in Paris. Now, what I don't really understand is, what the U.S. gets out of all this, other than, the fact that, the military-industrial complex, or perhaps that's the wrong term, because they're a little more impersonal, the military-industrial complex. Well, so let's say the Pentagon, they're just kind of bitter that things have not gone their way in Syria, and that everything that they've done, has ended terribly. And, and the CIA too, for that matter. But I don't know to what extent the CIA is involved with this whole oil situation. I'm sure they are to some extent. We'll find out in 40 years when it's declassified eventually. Probably about how they were, assassinating civilians or whatever who were trying to get the government to come in and stop the U.S. from moving their tanks in. But we, of course, don't know anything about that yet. All we know is that, the one clear goal here that seems consistent throughout is that the U.S. doesn't want Assad's forces to come back in and reclaim this territory. I say that is absolutely their red line. They don't care what happens. Nobody can come in here. This is American Syria, I guess. And we're going to make the desert bloom without Assad's help. And of course, this doesn't make any sense from an American perspective. I mean, I'm not even talking about from an America First perspective. I'm saying if you're an American imperialist, it doesn't make sense. If you care about having this grand, world empire in America being the lone global superpower, how is wasting millions of dollars in this stupid sandbox? It's not even you're not even fighting for the whole country of Syria. You're just trying to hang on to this tiny little chunk, that's landlocked in between Iraq and Syria and Jordan, and there's absolutely, there's oil, but there's nothing of value that warrants keeping this kind of presence, because you're not going to make the money back. Even if you did steal all of the oil, which, apparently the U.S. claims they're not going to do, they're going to take that oil and help the people who live there sell it to, I guess, become a petrostate or something. Maybe this will be like Kuwait, a country that only exists because of oil and was set up, to get oil out. But that would seem to go along against the U.S.'s, longer-term policy of never helping separatist movements. I guess because of the American civic religion and how the separatists and fighting to create the Southern Confederacy were so evil that separatism is always bad. So they have to say that, oh no, we have to keep all these countries united, and so it's not like the U.S. is trying to create a little puppet state that's going to break off from Syria. In effect, that's what it's going to do. But in principle, they're going to say that this government is the legitimate government of Syria, and so the obvious long-term goal will be regime change in Damascus and to impose this new order on the entirety of the country, which is completely unrealistic. It's never going to happen. Sure, if the U.S. really wants to spend millions and millions of dollars and dump resources, they can hold on to this sliver of territory, and they could try to build it up into an independent country, but they're not going to do that. They're going to use it as a staging ground to try and, I guess, launch terrorist attacks against Assad's government, and I don't understand why. I've said in the last video I did on this that maybe this is it makes somewhat sense from Israel's perspective, and maybe the U.S. is trying to do this to help out Israel. But I don't even think it makes a lot of sense, if you're Israel, because it's not like Assad's going away anytime soon. It's not like this state is going, or this territory can act as a buffer state between Israel and Syria, because this is on the complete opposite side of Syria from Israel. Israel is right next to Damascus, so it made sense for the Israelis to try and prop up the Syrian revolution to distract Assad from them. But this little rump state thing is not going to do that. It's not going to help them in any, and it's not going to help the Americans. So I don't really know what's going on. Stubbornness is all I can account this to. The U.S. was very defiant, saying that any Assad official who comes here is going to be shot on sight because you are not the legitimate authority in this land. What's the point of playing this game? It's so pointless. It's pathetic. That's what it is. I shouldn't try and rationalize this and say, what's their grand master plan here? Because there obviously is none. This is just pathetic. What's next? Are they going to say that we're there to protect women's rights, like in Afghanistan or something? Oh, well, if we leave, who's going to teach all these poor little Syrian girls, in the middle of the desert out in the east, how to read? I'm sorry if there's people who are tired of me discussing this so often, but, nobody else seems to care. So I'm kind of going nuts over here by myself, trying to figure out what the hell is going on and why any of this is happening. Why is there no one else who's mad about Trump staying in Syria after he made a big deal about how saying, oh, we're getting out of these endless wars and no more nation building, and specifically in this case, he said, hey, I've ended the war in Syria, we're out, this is great, and then all of a sudden now we're nation building in Syria? We weren't even nation building really before, when they had the U.S. troops stationed with the Kurds. That was just sort of the Americans were acting as human shields in the case of the Kurds, but I don't think the U.S. was really nation building there, but that's apparently what we're doing now. So I should probably cut it off here. If you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.